All right. Good morning, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us all here today. Today's shiur should be Le'ilum Nishmas, our dear friend Menachem ben Yisrael Yaakov, as well as my dear aunt Rivka Bas Gavriel Tzvi, and Le'ilum Nishmas Zaidi, Reb Shmuel ben Yosef Dov HaKohen, and B'schos L'Refuah Shalema Bekarav Meshalom ben Sarachel, Miriam Basara, and Yair Yeshia ben Chaya Atara. Today, we are on page 232 in the Art Scroll, for those who are following along, and today we are talking about the third of 7 areas of distinction that a person with Bitachon, and Rav Av is going to compare it to a person who lacks Bitachon today, and the third area of distinction is dealing with success or failure. How a person with Bitachon versus a person who lacks Bitachon today, how they go about on their day-to-day in dealing with both successes and with failures. And he starts off like this. It says, Vashlishi, the third difference between a person who has Bitachon and one who lacks Bitachon is Ki haboteach b'elekim ve'im yis'asek b'asibois lo yismach b'libay alehem. That one who trusts in Hashem, although he engages in some means of earning a living or achieving otherworldly benefits, he does not rely in his heart on those means. We learned in our introduction and in Perek Shlishi and Revi, we spoke about the idea that we are to establish a hishtadlus in our life. And for every aspect, whether it's for making money so we can support ourselves, whether it's for finding a doctor so that we can get healed, whether it's for calling on a shadchan so we can find a shidduch, whatever it might be. And over there, we learned and we understood that the hishtadlus portion is just something that we are required to do, like he says over here, but we also understand that the outcome has nothing to do with the hishtadlus that we are performing. That the result is not directly related to our hishtadlus. Hishtadlus is just an act of something that we are required to do because that's what Hashem needs us to do. It's nothing to do with the outcome that you're going to receive, not in a good way and not in a bad way. Rather, this person with Bitachon, he engages in worldly means in this hishtadlus because he chooses to serve Hashem. Because hishtadlus is something that Hashem asked us to do, and therefore by doing hishtadlus, we are actually doing a mitzvah. We are doing something Hashem commanded us to do. Who commanded a person to be involved in the world in order to inhabit it and enhance it. Hashem directed a person. It talks about when Hashem created the world, he put Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava, he put them on this world in the Garden of Eden, and he told us to work the fields, work this world. Hashem needs us human beings to be productive in the sense that he needs us to work the world for Hashem, the way Hashem wants us to do things. But the outcome as to what we deserve, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, is not directly correlated with our exact hishtadlus. As we also learned that when we choose hishtadlus and we make money, that we shouldn't rely on that job to make the money that we're making, that Hashem can send us the money in any one way. The same thing with choosing a doctor. By choosing this doctor doesn't mean that this doctor is going to heal us. Because Hashem, and through so many stories that we've learned over the years, that we've seen in different svarim, different books, and just columns and newspapers and magazines, that you see where someone sees miracles. Not necessarily always you look at it as a miracle, but you look at it as like, this person went to a doctor, this person did this and that, and the outcome was positive, but it had nothing to do with the treatment that they received, whether it's for a health treatment or any other kind of business treatment. So you see that the hishtadlus is not directly correlated with the result that you receive. Therefore, this person with Bitachon, if he should attain some kind of benefit or some potential harm as well is deflected from him as a result of this means of hishtadlus, then he's fine with that. He will thank Hashem alone for this because he understands that when he gains some kind of benefit from his hishtadlus, whether it's work or whether it's a doctor, whatever it is, he understands that it's not his doing that made it happen, it's that Hashem's doing that made it happen. If, for example, his occupation brings him success. He has a successful business. He will not develop a greater love and extra affection for his occupation, which means, say you start a business and you went into it with bitachon that Hashem is going to help you. Then the business grew and became super successful. This person with hishtadlis, you're going to see here in a second, is very careful not to kind of flip on Hashem over here and say, now that he has a successful business, he puts the credit of this success towards himself or towards the industry or the business that he started. Nor will he have more confidence in his business or in his industry. To the contrary, this person with bitachon, what does he do? He puts a great effort into having more bitachon on Hashem because he understands that all this happened only because Hashem. Nothing to do with what he did. His hishtadlus is just a requirement for him. The outcome, the fact that he had this super successful business today, has nothing to do with his doing, has nothing to do because he's smart, has nothing to do because he found a niche and now he's the one to praise. No, he understands that the one to praise is always Hashem because it's Hashem that made this happen. And let his heart rely on Hashem with reference to the means that he made this money, through which his success came out. So at the end of the day, this person with bitachon, when it comes to his successes in his life, he realizes that this is Hashem. And if, on the other hand, the occupation that he chose, the business that he got into, the industry in which he engages, does not bring him the desired benefit of earning his keep, so he doesn't have a successful business, it's failing, he's having a hard time. He knows and trusts that his livelihood will come to him whenever Hashem wants, through whichever avenue he wants. Because going back to the beginning, he understands that the hishtadlus that he needs to do has nothing to do with the outcome. And therefore, when it's not, the business that he's in is not doing well, it's failing, he's struggling, he understands that it's Hashem that's running this world, and Hashem is that's making this happen. And it's for his benefit. And so therefore he doesn't understand it, but he still has a love and full bitachon in Hashem because he understands that I'm doing my part. The part of hishtadlus I'm doing. And therefore, everything else, the outcome is up to Hashem. Just like when I had the successful business, I understood that it's Hashem. As well now, when I have this business that's failing, I also understand that that's up to Hashem. Accordingly, this person with bitachon, who will not become disgusted with the occupation he chose because of his lack of success. This person doesn't get all of a sudden like, what did I do? I'm going to throw it out. I'm going to give it up. Why? Because he understands that this downturn in events in his business, in the industry, whatever it is, has nothing to do with his hishtadlus. Has to do with Hashem running the world, and his playbook played out this way right now. Nor will he stop engaging in it, since the reason he works as an occupation is solely in order to serve Hashem. At the end of the day, the reason this person with bitachon doesn't stop working is because he understands his hishtadlus has nothing to do with the outcome. He's performing a mitzvah by doing his hishtadlus. That's it. Now, the fact that he's super successful or not is nothing to do with that. He's still doing a mitzvah. The same way you go daven and put on tefillin and wear tzitzis, that's a mitzvah that you will have to do because Hashem asked you to do that. He commanded us to do so, and so you do so. The outcome of that mitzvah, the reward for that, it's irrelevant, right? You're doing that because this is what you're required to do. The same thing. The person with bitachon understands that his hishtadlus is an act of something Hashem asked him to do, and so he does it. Now, but as for the one who does not trust in Hashem, the person who lacks bitachon today, he engages in worldly means because he relies on them to benefit him. This person who lacks bitachon today, when he goes out to work, he relies on his actual work in order to make his living, not on the Hashem. He relies on his own doing, his hours that he puts in there, his mindset that he puts towards it, that is directly correlated with his success. Or to deflect harm from him. Accordingly, he behaves in the opposite manner of the one who does have bitachon. The one who has bitachon does it because he's supposed to, and the outcome is irrelevant. The person who lacks bitachon today is doing his hishtadlus portion because he feels that without that he wouldn't have anything. The more work he puts into it, the more hours he puts into his business, and he will have success directly correlated with his efforts that he puts in there. And if it turns out that the occupation he chose brings him benefit, Yishabach oisam v'yishabach ishtadlusa behen. He praises himself, he praises his business, he praises that he's smart, he understands, he's a genius. He gives all that thanks to his ability. V'yivcha oisam v'lo yifne el zulasan. He becomes excited about his occupation. He gets all excited that, oh my gosh, you got to get into this industry. This is the best industry in the world. Because look what I could do with it. And he will not give consideration to anything other, meaning he doesn't give consideration that maybe it's Hashem. It's a different force that's making this happen. And if on the other hand, the occupation he chose does not turn out to be to benefit him, and on the contrary, it gets worse, he loses his livelihood, he abandons the business, and he doesn't do anything, becomes disgusted with it, and loses interest in his industry. The pasuk says over there that therefore he sacrifices to his net and burns incense to his troll. What that means is it brings an example of a fisherman. The fisherman relies on his net, on his tools, on his ability to do something in order to make it happen. And then when it's not working, he blames himself, he blames his industry or whatever it is, but he doesn't put any thought process into thinking that maybe there's a different part of here. Maybe there's Hashem that runs this world, and that's why these things are happening. So understanding, the person of Bitachon over here, good or bad, he understands it's all Hashem. There's shtadlis that you are required every single morning when you wake up, you have your schedule, you go to work, the outcome is irrelevant. It's relevant, you want it to be a successful one, but the point is that you still have to do your shtadlis, and you're having that mindset, it makes it a little bit easier, just like we spoke yesterday, and it dovetails on that. Your anxiety gets lessened, and you lose it altogether, hopefully, at some point, because you realize, I still got to do my part. I still got to clock into my 9 to 5. I got to put my full force, my best foot forward. I got to put my effort into it. Not be lazy. Don't sit back and say, oh, I showed up. That's not what it is. You got to still put your effort towards that. That's your hishtadlis. Don't just clock in, clock out. That's not what it is. So when you do that, going with yesterday what we spoke about, the anxiety, it helps out with that, and understanding that. That's the fourth area of distinction. Now, before we conclude today, we have a beautiful Dvar Torah on this week's Parsha. We started off by Midbar, in the Midbar this week. And something very interesting he speaks about. And this is actually a Dvar Torah that I saw from Rebbetzin Esther Jungreis. She says like this. In Parshas Bamidbar, it's also known as Book of Numbers. We talk about Pekudim, and Hashem commanded that what we do is we count all the Yidden. And one might ask that what happened was previously we just counted the Yidden, and now we're doing it again. So she says the words that the pasuk uses over there it says Su es rosh, literally means lift up your head, lift up the head. That's how Hashem commands us to go Su es rosh, and you should count the Yidden. What we see over here, that each and every one of us is unique, and Hashem is showing us that we're special. How is He showing us? He asks us to count us, and Hashem says, lifting up our heads. She says like this, discovering our mission. She says at the beginning of the Parsha, the Torah mentions that starting from the second year in the Midbar, not in the first year, Hashem commanded that we start counting the Yidden. There were 12 Shvatim at that point, and they were put into north, south, east, and west in different sections. And each one had a flag that symbolizes their Shevet, their nationality, so to speak. Now the question is, why didn't Hashem do it the first year, right when we came out of Mitzrayim? So Rabbi Tznyogbe says like this. She says, when the first year when we came out of Mitzrayim, we weren't yet a unified nation. We didn't have our own identity. And what would have happened was if Hashem would have split us up into Shvatim at that point, into the 12 tribes, and then would have given everyone gets their flag. And what happened is, when it comes to doing the ultimate goal of being a Yid and accepting the Torah, we would have 12 different opinions, 12 different versions of how we look at things, and we would become argumentative and begin to a fight, and we would have a problem over there. Because everyone would become strong to that flag. Everyone wants to defend their nation. So it only started in the second year after everyone accepted this common goal of Yiddishkeit, of building a Mishkan, later on getting into Eretz Yisrael. Once we figured that out, then when Hashem said, now we can start counting the Yidden. Now, she goes on to say that every one of us, we find, is a special individual. She said, Hashem created all of us with nose, and eyes, ears, body. But there's no two people in this world alike. Even when you have identical twins, there are small little traces of differences. There's no two people on this world that are alike. We're all unique. And each one of us, just like the Shvatim, we carry our own flag, our own destiny, our own nation, so to speak. Now, let us consider this for a moment. Since Hashem is aware of each and every star, David HaMelech says over there, he says in the Pasuk, he says, I looked up into the sky and I saw the billions of stars, and he named each one of them. Hashem took the time to name each one of the stars that are in the sky, billions of stars. What does that mean? Hashem takes the time to show us, when he says, Su'es Rosh, lift up your head, because he wants to show that each one of us, every person has a different personality, but each one of us contributes to the betterment of this world. Each person is unique in their way. We all carry our own flag, our own nationality. Just like the Shvatim had 12 unique Shvatim, 12 different flags, and they carry their own nation, their own nationality, but we're all here towards that one common goal, towards making a better place of this world, towards what Hashem wants us to do. She continues over here, she says, let us consider some further insights regarding counting. When we explain Su'es Rosh, lift up my head, when something is precious to us, we count it, right? We want to count something that's very important. The very fact that Hashem wanted us to be counted testifies to the love that Hashem has for each person, uplifting. He says, Su'es Rosh, lift up your head. I love you alone. Not the whole Klal Yisrael as a whole, but each individual one of us counts towards making a whole of Klal Yisrael. That's what she's saying. We are counted once again even after the Chet HaEgel. What happened when we made that golden calf? Right afterwards, Hashem said, count them again. Give Machzas HaShekel. Why? Why did he do that? Hashem wanted to show us that even though sometimes we do sin, he still loves us. Su'es Rosh, give a Machzas HaShekel, count every single yid, even though they just did an Aveira. They just went to the Chet HaEgel. Right? They forgot about me. Soon, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't come down exactly the time they didn't want us. They thought, but Hashem said, I still love you. I still care about you. So much so, I want you to give a Machzas HaShekel so that you can contribute to the overall good of the Yiddishkeit, the overall good of Yidden. The Machzas HaShekel was used to build the Mishkan, to do the Kalim and everything that we needed over there. Hashem wanted to show us that every single one of us is important. And she continues over here to say one last point. The reason the Machzas HaShekel, the half shekel, she says, we are one half, each one of us, every person uniquely is one half of the overall good. You are one half, and the rest of us is the other half. You know, we have a lot of times, girls wear these friendship lockets or bracelets, and it's like cut in half. It says friends forever, and you put them together. Why is that? We all carry a half of it, half of that friendship. But together we make that whole. That's what Yiddishkeit is about. Each one of us is a Machzas HaShekel. We are one half of that full love, that full trust of that whole Klal Yisrael that we have. And then when we come together as one, we unify. And what we do is we fulfill the commandment of Hashem, is to build up Klal Yisrael, build up this world, something that we learn every single day in this shiur.